All right, it's Wednesday night. It's 8:30 p.m. It's youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and it's the Panther-Lair Show, where we hope everything is working, but sometimes it just might not be. But hopefully it is. We'll see. I think I got it set so we got the right microphone. Are the fireworks working? Is this one fireworks? Yes, the fireworks are working, so that's always a success. Welcome to the show. We haven't done a live show in only about 4 or 5 days. We did like multiple live shows in a row there. Did a live show last Wednesday night, of course, and then we had a live post-game show after the Syracuse game. Did a live morning Pitt on Friday morning. Lots of fun last week, and this week figures to be pretty fun as well. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what Saturday night brings. I got to say, for as excited as I was about last week's game, the Thursday night game against Syracuse, how big that game felt, this Saturday's game feels even bigger. And that's sort of the upside of when you continue to win, because as you keep winning, the stakes go up, the pressure increases, and what's on the line keeps growing. So we've got that to look forward to if Pitt's able to keep winning. But in the meantime, we're going to talk a little Pitt sports here on the Panther-Lair Show. As always, like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt video content, whether it's the daily morning Pitt videos, our live show like this one right here that we do every Wednesday night at 8:30, our post-game shows that we do after every game, and Saturday night we'll be live after the SMU game pretty much as soon as that thing ends. It's not going to be like the Syracuse game where we waited until 1 a.m. to start the live show. This is a road game, so we'll be watching it from home, and we will go live pretty much whenever that game ends. And so post-game show be a little bit earlier than 1 a.m. It's going to be kind of late, but it's sure. Copper Penny says, I'm a zookeeper who stumbled upon this podcast in hopes of discussing mating habits of big cats. I've been hoodwinked. Sir, we're just starting the podcast. You don't just jump into it. I mean, like anyone who's watching adult film knows you don't just jump into it. I mean, you got to take your time. You got to work up to it, you know? You got to fix the cable first, right? Come on. We're not going to give away the goods right off the bat. Look, there's only like 35 viewers so far. We got to let people filter in. We want to make, you got to build the suspense and build it up. So Copper Penny, stay with it. We'll get into the big cats in no time. But in the meantime, like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com so you can make sure you never miss any of our big cat video content here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Of course, don't forget the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. Find it all at Panther-Lair.com, and of course, message boards to interact with hundreds and thousands of other Pitt fans all day, every day. Pitt fans are hanging out on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com, talking about big Pitt sports, talking about big cats, maybe talking about their mating habits, but I don't really know. I mean, people get into weird stuff on the message boards. So, there's a lot of those kind of conversations happening. So go check it out, Panther-Lair.com. And of course, like I say, like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Let's bring in Jim Hammett, our good friend from Panther-Lair.com. Jim, I forgot the layout thing. There we are. How are you this evening, Jim?
I'm good. I mean, I've seen us get off topic before. Like, we could probably get to that, like, big cat mating habits. Like, I don't know if we'll have time for it, but like, that's more of like an off season. Like in July, we might get to it.
I think you would have to have like Pitt playing another big cat mascot, like Pitt Clemson, maybe. Panthers and Tigers. This week you've got a big cat and a horse, and so that's a little weirder than the otherwise normal seeming Copper Penny user here. But so we'll table that conversation for the time being. I'm going to jump right to this question here because I like it and it seems like something to talk about. ZC717 says, do you think Kyle Lewis or Rasheem Biles have a chance to win ACC Defensive Player of the Year? Just to go over some things real quick, some numbers. And this is the ACC sorts its tackle leaders by, looks like tackles per game. So right now, Biles and Lewis are 5th and 6th, respectively, in the ACC in tackles per game. Donovan McMillan is right ahead of them at 8.9 tackles per game. Biles is 8.7. Lewis is 8.6. In tackles for loss per game, Rasheem Biles leads the conference at 1.58. Biles, of course, only played 6 games. In sacks, I mean, I'm guessing these guys aren't very high on the. Oh, Biles is 7th in the ACC in sacks per game at 0.67. Interceptions. Well, Lewis is up there. He's got 3 interceptions, which is tied for the second most. The kid from Cal has 6 interceptions. Lewis, Ahmad Moses from SMU, actually, and one kid from Miami all have 3 interceptions. As we know, Biles has 1, which he returned for a touchdown. So with all that understood, that these guys both are top 10 in the conference in tackles, top 10 in the conference in tackles for loss. Not quite sacks, although Biles, like I say, is 7th in the conference in sacks. What do you think, Jim? What if are you taking Biles or Lewis or the field? What are you betting on right now?
I don't have any other like good candidates in my head. Like I didn't go through like, oh, this guy's leading in sacks or this guy's leading in interceptions. But like what I do know is I have been at least campaigning for Kyle Lewis. Like I have been like his personal hype man. Like I have been keeping his stats. And again, it's like he's the only player doing certain things in the whole country, and he makes an impact play or ends the game every single time. So I think he's the best defensive player in the conference through 8 weeks. That's just my opinion. I guess I haven't watched every ACC defensive player, but I think he's more than deserving, at least through half the season. I don't know if he'll win it, but I think he's deserving.
But like, I mean, what if I said I feel like you could make a case for Biles?
You could.
Like, are you like what's and like, look, we do our, I do the weekly player rankings. I put Kyle Lewis as the number 1 player on the team. I put Biles number 2, and I said it's kind of like the Godfather 1 and Godfather 2. Like, it's the best movie ever made. We're just not sure which one is the best movie ever. Like, these 2 guys are the best players at Pitt right now. I just don't know which one's better, because Biles has equal or better numbers playing in fewer games than Lewis right now, aside from the interceptions. That's the one thing Lewis has, is 3 interceptions where Biles has 1. What separates Lewis? And again, I'm a big Kyle Lewis guy. What separates Lewis from Biles in your view?
I just think the impact of the big plays, like the 3 interceptions as opposed to 1. Like whatever he comes up with an interception, like 2 of them ended football games. He ended North Carolina's day on a sack. It's just like when they need a big play, and I know there's no way to like quantify it, but it's like I feel like Kyle Lewis is just better. And that's not to take anything away from Rasheem Biles. He's having almost as good of a season, but like there's just something when I watch them, I'm like, he's their best player. That's just how I feel whenever I watch their defense.
Yeah, and I mean, Biles is a little bit better in some of those other stats, but it's only by like 0.5. He's got 9 tackles for loss. Lewis has 8.5. He has 3.5 sacks. Lewis has 3. So it's not a huge separation there, although Biles has played in fewer games. How about the fact that Biles has played 6 games? Lewis has played 7. Biles has more solo tackles than Kyle Lewis, which I think is interesting. 29 to 26. Not a huge separation, but I think that's interesting. They're both just playing at such a high level right now. It's tough. I mean, it's really tough, I think, to pick between the 2. What about the possibility, if they keep on their current statistical track, could they potentially split votes, in the ACC Defensive Player of the Year race?
I mean, I guess. I mean, like in order to win this award, I think Pitt also needs to be a top 3 team or a top 2 team in the league. I mean, I usually hardware comes with, for the good teams. Although James Conner did win like ACC Player of the Year on a 6-6 team. So like, I guess anything is possible, but I think for defensive player, because a lot of the things you're weighted on, there's like the impact plays, the game-changing plays, and I think both of these guys have that. So yeah, they could probably cancel each other out, which would be a little unfortunate.
Yeah. I wonder how to. I wonder if that's something Pitt's SID and media relations department could influence by putting the weight of the Pitt PR machine behind one player. Although even then, I don't know who you pick. You know, and maybe this might be one of these things where the coaches sit back and they're like, "Are you an idiot? Of course it's this guy. Of course this guy is playing at a higher level." I just don't know which one they would pick because I think both guys are playing really, really well right now. I talked about it on the Morning Pit today. I wrote about it on, we had the post on the board yesterday where we ranked the top 5 players on the team. I'm sure you saw it. I went Lewis, Biles 1 and 2, and then Desmond Reed 3, Ben Sauls 4, and Eli Holstein 5, with a very clear understanding that, for all the things riding on this game at SMU, one of the biggest things at stake is Eli Holstein's place in my top 5 ranking of players on the team. Like it's on the line here. If he doesn't play well, he's dropping out, and I'll put Donovan McMillan in there. I'll put Brandon George in there. I don't care. I'll do it. What's your top 5 right now, Jim?
I'd have to say the 2 line. I like your top 3. I can't argue that. Just because like we just went over 10 minutes on why like Kyle Lewis and Rasheem Biles are basically equal. Sauls is automatic. So I think that's an unquestioned top 4. I mean, I think when picking Holstein, you're picking the whole body of work. You're not picking the past 2 games. So
lifetime achievement award.
But I don't have a problem with it because he was instrumental in so many wins, and he helped them do so many things, and he won ACC Rookie of the Week 5 straight weeks. I mean, he is awesome. Like, I think that's like one of the things I'm going to write about this week in the 3-2-1 column. It's like, this guy is still good. Like, they just had a weird game against Syracuse where they didn't have the ball, and he struggled a little bit against Cal, but that happens. He's a freshman. But like everything else suggests like he could turn the switch back on and pick it at 500 yards on Saturday, and I really wouldn't be all that surprised. So I have no problem with him at 5. I mean, Donovan McMillan's just been a rock. Like nothing gets by him. He has saved them from a lot of big plays just because he's such a sure tackler. Brandon George has been great. Rylan Gandy's like quietly been really good.
In battle too. I think Rashad Battles played well.
Yeah.
I think both corners have really stepped up. I think Javon McIntyre's done a really nice job on the back end. I mean, and in terms of guys who make an impact, I mean, I can't put Sean Fitzsimmons above a bunch of the guys we've talked about, but I think his impact has been unmistakable in the last 3 games. Has he played 3 games? Did he come back at Carolina? Was that his first game back?
Yeah, and he
okay,
did
so
that game.
Yeah, I think he's been really good. There's a lot of guys that are developing and popping out, and it's impressive to see. But I think I would probably say for Pitt to continue to be successful, Eli Holstein needs to maintain his place in the top 5 with his play. I mean, like he's got to, and I kind of agree about the Syracuse game. I mean, it was a weird game. They ran 44 plays on offense. Like, he only threw 15 passes and he completed 11 of them, which is pretty good, and I thought the touchdown passes were both really nice passes. I thought he had a couple other throws that were really nice throws, but there were also some mistakes where you're just like, what are you looking at? What are you thinking there? That did you not see the field? Why aren't you seeing the field better? And that's concerning, because I understand it's not all going to be steps forward and, just improvement. There are going to be steps back along the way, but he's due for a big step forward. I think he's got it in him. Kind of like you said, I think he's got it in him. They could really use it this week because this SMU defense is really good against the run. I mean, they're the number 1 run defense in the ACC. They're up there in the nation. I mean, they're pretty good at stopping the run, and that doesn't 100% mean Desmond Reed can't break some plays, but they're going to need to make plays in the passing game. And I don't know. What's the biggest thing for him? Just seeing the field better, being calmer? What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like after the Cal game, like our assessment was just take what's there, kind of take those underneath routes. Like, don't try to go for the home run. And, I guess that's where he's having problems is whenever he's looking at the whole field and whenever they're kind of mixing coverage up a little bit. So I don't know. I think taking what's in front of you, just give the ball to Desmond Reed a bunch and let him try to make some plays. I mean, it's a simple concept, but like if you have a guy like that, it's like, all right, just get him the ball. And I mean, like even last week against Syracuse, like he only had 11 carries. Like Holstein only had 15 pass attempts. It was just a weird game, and then like it was kind of like it was Kyle McCord's fault. It wasn't their fault. So I don't know. I mean, I can't say like it's been 2 bad weeks of offense. It was like a bad game against Cal and an incomplete against Syracuse.
Yeah, exactly. Josh Newark says, I laid a large bet on Pitt money line. This game is going to be great, and I can't wait for Saturday night victory shots of the game. This line is just weird, Jim. Like 7.5.
I was
Open
gonna
at
check if it
6.5. Yeah, I don't know if it's moved now that Narduzzi announced that Eli Holstein's going to play, which I think you and I were saying all week, and everybody mostly expected. I don't think there's any real surprise there. Rhett Lashley saying Kevin Jennings is questionable. I mean, yeah, his leg bent a weird way in that Duke game, but I don't believe at all that he's not going to. There's a chance that he's not going to play in this game. But are you surprised by this line? Are you surprised that it opened where it did? Are you surprised that it's moved to 7.5 and that it really? I thought at one point it dropped down to 5.5 real early, like Sunday or maybe Monday, and then just bounced back up. Now it's still like at 7.5. I mean, we'll see if there's a fallout from the Holstein announcement, I guess. But are you surprised that it's that big?
I am, because I don't know. I mean, I like sized up SMU a couple times this week, and did a little deep dive, and I'm like, they're good, but like they don't strike me as like a great team, like a team that should have like such a 7.5 point advantage against another ranked team. Like they lost to BYU, like the only good team they really played, they lost. I mean, they needed kind of a miracle to beat Duke. They survived a 6-turnover game or whatever it was, and I guess the Louisville win is good, but I don't know. I mean, Louisville's kind of trending more towards being a 7-5, 8-4 type team. So like that's their best win to date. So like I don't get it. Like it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And I kind of figured the line was kind of tied to Eli Holstein's health. And again, like anyone that kind of had any understanding, like everyone kind of knew he was playing, and I would assume including the odds makers. So I don't know. It hasn't made sense to me.
Yeah, and I think even like matchup wise, like I've tried to look a lot at what SMU likes to do offensively, and it feels a lot like it. I mean, famous last words, but it feels like a lot like it plays into Pitt's defense pretty well. Like they like to attack the perimeter a lot. Like Brashard Smith, Kevin Jennings, and LJ Johnson Jr. combined have like 99 runs, according to Pro Football Focus, that went outside the tackles. So that's a decent amount of running. They average like 6.5 yards per carry going outside the tackles. I think if you run outside the tackles, you're running into the two guys we just talked about, Lewis and Biles, who, combined have 55 solo tackles this season. And here, hold on. I have the Pro Football Focus numbers. Lewis is charged with 10 missed tackles. Biles is charged with 7. But that's, I think when you look at opportunity, they're missing less, it's less than 15% of their tackle, whatever. You're running into the strength of Pitt's defense. I think when you run outside the tackles, you're running into those guys and then Donovan McMillan right behind them. They like to throw screens, but I think Pitt has done a good job kind of taking advantage of those. I tell you, it's funny, like, I think Jennings is 30 of 35 on screens, 85% completion. I had forgotten that Rhett Lashley was the coordinator at Miami in 2020 and 2021. And it's funny because that 2021 game, for all the different memories there are of that, Kenny Pickett threw a terrible interception. There was a near safety that everybody got hung up on and ignored the fact that even though they didn't give Pitt the safety, Miami still had the ball at like the 4-inch line after that non-safety, and Pitt didn't get a stop. They gave up like a 7-yard gain after. That was the play that killed them, not the safety they missed that the refs could or couldn't have called a safety. But anyway, all the different stuff you forget that you remember about that game. What stands out to me the most is in the first quarter, Miami scored, I think, 3 touchdowns, and they might have all been on screen passes with terrible tackling, just missed tackles throughout that whole first quarter. And it created the whole separation in that game. And it's interesting, I think, now they're facing Lashley again. He likes to run screens again, but I think this is a better tackling team than Pitt was in the first quarter of the Miami game in 2021. So it feels like a lot of things they like to do play into Pitt's defense. They like to run the RPOs. Pitt has gotten much better at defending those. There are big questions about Pitt's offense, but I don't think there are big enough questions to push the line to a touchdown. It just feels like an overreaction to a couple, like you said, one bad game of offense, right, and one incomplete game of offense.
Yeah, and even looking at SMU, it's like, I don't know. I mean, they have some good players, like quarterback's good, running back's good, but like best receivers out. Like even going back to that Miami game in 2021, like a lot of things that killed them was Will Mallory, the Miami tight end, and their tight end's out for the year. RJ Maryland is like their leading receiver, and he is done for the year. So you look at SMU's receivers, there's not a lot of guys that like totally scare you. I know there's some speed on the perimeter with Daniels, I believe, but like, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't get it. Like, SMU looks like a really good team that was in, the AAC last year that's made the move to the ACC. Like, it's not like they're coming up with like loads of talent. It's not like Pitt's playing Clemson. I don't know. I mean, I don't see the talent disparity. I don't see why this SMU team, unless it's like the greatest home field advantage ever.
Well, it's a small stadium, right?
Like 32,000.
Yeah. So, I mean, it'll be packed and it'll be rocking and it'll be loud, but it's not 80,000 people on top of you. Yeah. And I mean, that's interesting about the tight end too, because that was the thing in the Miami game in 2020. Their tight end just kept hitting those passes up the middle against poor Chase Pine or whoever it was. And so it's, it's very weird, but hey, maybe it's a good bet. Voodoo IPA says he's streaming the Panther-Lair Show while raking leaves on Devil's Night. What a night. It's like pitch black out there, man. How are you raking leaves? Like, how can you even see where the leaves are going? It's terribly dark. Yeah. Matt Presto says, I know people insist the AP poll doesn't matter, but it's the same people voting that downplay this team's resume that are also writing blithering articles about Pitt's bad win against winless Kent State. It's creating a narrative already, and the selection committee is human and not immune to seeing and hearing that garbage noise. We talked a lot about polls this week, Jim. I'm sure you've had a lot of conversations with people about the polls and why is Pitt ranked here? How could they? Like, I think there are a lot of arguments to be made against Pitt's current ranking, but ultimately it always comes down to that bottom line of if you keep winning, you're going to keep moving up. I don't think it's like it's worth discussing and it's interesting to argue about because what was the last time a power conference team was 7-0 and ranked this low, and it's only happened like one other time, and this is tied for the lowest for a power conference team ever that was 7-0. It's interesting, but as Pitt keeps winning, they'll keep moving up. So my question here, Jim, and this is what I'm most curious about. Pitt's number 18 right now. There's a bunch of teams in front of them, obviously. But in particular, Alabama's 14, LSU is 16. Both of those teams have 2 losses. If Pitt wins on Saturday night, beats a ranked opponent on the road, and looks good doing it, doesn't have to be a blowout, but just looks good doing it, do they jump LSU and or Alabama as an 8-0 team? Will an 8-0 team be ranked below a 2-loss or 2 2-loss SEC teams?
I don't know if they'll jump both of them, but it wouldn't like possibly they could get past LSU. I mean, they like Ole Miss dropped below Pitt and they won. So it's not unprecedented. Like an SEC 2-loss team just got ranked below Pitt this week. So yeah, it could happen. Like if Pitt comes out, I don't know, wins 42-21 or something, doubles up SMU and looks really good, and Eli Holstein's back and the offense is clicking, I could see them moving up a little bit. But like what you said, and like the question was about like the selection committee and their notions about Pitt. Like at the end of the day, Pitt's only path to make the playoffs is going 11-1 or better. Like, yeah, that's all that matters. Like I don't really care what Pitt is ranked after 8 games or 9 games. Like the only thing, like, they need to go 11-1 or 12-0. Like that's it. Like that's kind of the deal. So
right,
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're going to get much help. I mean, like you never know with upsets and stuff, but like 17 is what Kansas State. I forget they play. I don't know. They play like a 3-win team or something like that, and I forget who 15 is. Is that Boise State? They play like San Diego State or something, and 13 is Indiana. They play Michigan State. None of those teams like right ahead of Pitt from the 13 to 17 range play some obvious game where it's going to be an obvious loss. I think Alabama plays LSU next week. Do you know if that's right? Am I right about that?
I believe you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So if Pitt's able to win, then there'll be a real opportunity to move ahead of somebody, next week if they win again, and that team, but it doesn't matter. It ultimately, you just have to keep winning. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It'll be interesting to see. Is the selection committee next week? Is that right? The first selection committee?
Yeah, the election night and
that's right. Night. That's right. And so it'll be interesting to see if Pitt can win where an 8-0 team ranks for the selection committee that is ostensibly going into it, without any preconceptions, right? There's no It's not like they've been ranking the top 25 since August 1st and they're moving teams up and down according to results. It's okay, here on November 5th, here's what we think of these teams right now based on what they've done. And it's interesting to see, whereas the AP voters tend to just react and move teams up and down based on their reactions, it'd be interesting to see what that brand new ranking looks like. That's not a reaction ranking. I'll be curious about that. Of course, like we said, you've got to get, you got to take care of business. Roman says, can we all please agree that if they lose this game, and I don't think they will, that we won't all freak out and say they're pitting. So look, Jim, I mentioned about Pitt's rank number 18 is the lowest ranking for a 7-0 power conference team since Rutgers in 2012. Everybody points out that, well, Rutgers in 2012 started off 7-0 and they finished like 9-4. That would be a pretty frustrating run of 6 games to go 2-4 over those 6 games. That would be frustrating. Our message boards would not be pleasant for the bulk of that time. But the end result, unsatisfying as it may be, would be a 9-4 season, which would be unquestionably, undeniably a good season. Now, nobody's going to have that perspective on Saturday night if they lose to SMU. We won't be spending our live show talking about, well, it's still a good season. Even though at 7-1, it is still a good season. Even if they drop out of the polls, which I don't think is completely impossible to imagine with a loss, 7-1 is still a good season. 7-1 still puts you in position to achieve a lot and accomplish a lot. So at some point, if that loss comes or when that loss comes, it's going to be disappointing because the dream of undefeated will be over. And once you get to this point, you're 7-0, it feels like that dream is a realistic possibility. But all the goals, a lot of the goals will still be there. And the potential of a very, very good season, memorable season, is still very much in play.
Can we just like record that monologue and just like post it to the top of the board? Like just that whole, like what you just said. And just so like, in case that happens, you can just explain it to them just like that. Guys,
I think I haven't spent the last 20 years trying to rationalize things to the Pitt fan base, Jim. I mean, like never this specific scenario of 7-0 and then they finally lose a game, but like I have spent 20 years like recruiting misses, losses on the field, on the court. I mean, like this is what I do, Jim. so I guess what I'm saying is I don't need to record that because I can just spit it off the top of my head because I've said it so many times. All I have to do is just change the names and a couple of the records and whatnot. Scotty Lip is a super chatter, says, what would your feelings be on selection day with an 11-1 Pitt who lost to Clemson at home and didn't play in the ACC Championship game? I'd vomit. They don't get in, do they? 11-1, miss the ACC Championship game?
I would guess no. I mean, I guess it kind of depends what happens, like who the two teams are in the ACC Championship, because it's not going to be a 3-bid league. So if like Clemson goes and SMU goes or whatever it is, I don't know. Like I would not be feeling great if I were Pitt in that scenario either. But
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I kind of go back to like thinking in basketball season, like you remember like the weekend of like the conference tournaments, like that Friday, Saturday, everything that went wrong, like could go wrong, did go wrong for Pitt basketball. Like every team on the bubble won. Yep. So like I don't know. I mean, it kind of depends. Like it's like a long drawn out bubble in college football.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like some guys are pointing out, oh, they could get in with that large bid. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Basically, we're asking the question of would the ACC get 3 teams into the playoff, right? I mean, that's what it would take. I guess. So Pitt loses to Clemson, right? Miami and Clemson play in the ACC Championship game. Miami wins. Clemson ends up with 2 losses overall. Pitt finishes 11-1. Could you see Pitt getting selected ahead of the 2-loss team? Probably not, because they lost to the 2-loss team, right?
Yeah, the head-to-head would hurt them.
Yeah, I would think that would be highly unlikely. I mean, like, I just can't see, you just got to Jake Taylor it. You just got to go win the whole bleeping thing. You know what I mean? Like that's you want to make sure you get in. That's the only way to be certain is you have to go win the whole thing. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Icy Light Mango Season says that everyone sign up to Alliance 412 so we can keep guys like Lewis, Biles, and Holstein. That's a very real thing, especially guys like Biles and Lewis, even Des Reed, guys who have made a name for themselves, who have blown up on the scene this year. They're going to have options. Gandy, you know what I mean? Battle. If Battle, comes back for another year, like these guys, Sincere Edwards keeps playing well. Francis Brew sees more and more snap. There's a lot of, there are good players on this team. That's how you get to 7-0 is you have good players on this team, and good players are going to have options in the offseason. And it's going to take some hometown discounts, but even with hometown discounts, you still got to come up with the cash. And, if you were going to, who would get the most money, Jim? If you're the general manager, the quarterback, is it just that easy, or would you go with one of the linebackers?
I would think just the quarterback, just because it's so hard to find a really good one. You just saw like how things worked out, but I thought it was interesting. Did you read the Ross Dellinger, his little feature on Pitt this week?
Yeah,
I thought it might have been a quote from Bickle, how he was just kind of candidly like, yeah, we know teams are going to come after Desmond Reed now. And it's like, but you can kind of speak in those terms. And I don't know, even like a year or two ago, you kind of didn't, but I there's no beating around the bush anymore. It's like, it's a real thing.
There was a line in there that was like Narduzzi restructured the way the team used NIL. It was like very plainly laying out what everyone knows and understands. But there's less and less. I think everyone's just like tired of trying to find ways to talk around it. Like, let's talk about the thing, the way it really is, what it really means, and what really happens, and how it works, and why it works, and what needs to happen. Let's just get it over with. Like, it's too annoying to have to like pretend like it's something that it's not, and then find a ways to talk about it. Let's see. A couple of things. Just with people, a few of the topics that we've touched on. Hungry Shark says, Hungry Shark is using a picture of me doing the shark thing as their user photo. That's funny. Well, thoughts on the spread being 7.5 seems like way too much. Could have been due to uncertainty with Holstein, but there's also uncertainty with Jennings. Makes me nervous. Vegas knows something we don't. We expected Holstein to play all along. I expect Jennings to play all along. I don't think there's anything to know. I guess it's 3 points for home field, and then they're saying that SMU is 4.5 points better than Pitt. I think there's probably respect for Pitt's defense, but maybe not enough respect that even if Pitt's defense plays well, that the offense won't be able to score to keep up. So, and given how they played in the last couple of games, they scored what did the offense score against Cal? Was there a defensive touch? Yeah, was there a defensive touchdown in that game? What am I thinking of?
They had 17, and Des had both touchdowns.
That's right. Okay, so they scored 2 touchdowns in that game and 2 in the. So they've scored 2 touchdowns in each of the last 2 games. Right. That's not exactly like overwhelming offensive outburst. So I can kind of understand some of that. Peninsula P says Pitt needs to win this game. The first CFP rankings come out on November 5th, and we might be top 10 if we beat SMU. I don't know about top 10, Jim. Where would you think? Let's say Pitt wins, no other surprising or crazy outcomes this weekend. What top 15, probably?
I would think. Maybe. This ranking is supposed to be independent of like the AP and the coaches pool. Like, this is just their first ranking. So again, you said like it'll be interesting to see where they view teams for the first time if they're ranking them. Like, I accidentally like turned on the show last night, and they did like a mock like what the selection show is going to look like on ESPN.
Yeah.
And I was like watching it for like a good like 5 minutes. I'm like, did I get my dates wrong? Are the playoffs coming out now? And so that kind of threw me off. And like I was like scrambling around, like Googling stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I think top 15, top 10, probably not.
Yeah. I'm just looking undefeated teams, this week. Army hosts Air Force. That would be a pretty ridiculous upset. BYU playing this week. Oops, they hit. No, I think BYU is off. Who else is there? Oregon. What's Oregon doing? Oregon's at Michigan. Probably will win that game. Penn State's got Ohio State, right? That's probably, I mean, between Penn State, Ohio State, and, Pitt, SMU are probably the two games where the undefeated teams are on upset watch the most. I mean, it's not an upset because Pitt's the underdog, but you know what I'm saying? Oh, and Penn State's an underdog too. But those are probably the games where the undefeated teams are probably viewed as most vulnerable. Would you agree about that? I mean, Miami is hosting Duke. I probably Pitt and Penn State, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if Aller's playing for Penn State. I thought he was hurt, so I think that's probably part of the line as well. So
yeah, Iowa State is hosting Texas Tech. Indiana's at Michigan State. That might be it for the undefeated teams this week. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably Pitt and Penn State are probably the ones that are most on the clock. But then again, I didn't. Who was it? Liberty, right? Liberty lost to Kennesaw State or something.
Winless Kennesaw State.
Yeah, exactly. They were like 20-something point. Yeah, so you never know what might happen. Matt Presto says official petition to please stop preseason rankings. We saw the blind PSU Pitt resume comparison, and yes, it absolutely carries weight with the committee. Penn State won't be 7 or 8 in the CFP if they're ranked number 3. Did you see this tweet from David Hale, Jim?
I did.
I'm just going to bring it up for people who didn't see it. It's one of these blind stat comparisons. Where is it? Here, Team A, 7-0, 19 points per game, winning margin, scoring margin, 521 opponent win percentage, 2-0 versus the FPI top 40. Team B, 7-0, same record, 19 points per game, scoring margin, same margin, 537 opponent winning percentage, 16 points higher, and also 2-0 versus the FPI top 40. So on those resume markers, record, scoring margin, opponent win percentage, and record versus the FPI top 40, both teams are the same. Penn State is Team A, Pitt is Team B. Pitt ranked 18th, Penn State ranked 3rd. We're not going to do away with preseason rankings. Do you think there would be a way, Jim, to have like September 17th or the final day of September, October 1st ranking where AP voters and coaches are instructed to rip up what they've already ranked and rank teams just based on what they've done and what they've accomplished? Is it possible for the human psyche to accomplish that? Or do you think they would still be basing it off of their original polls? Like, could that happen? And could it actually happen with any kind of like integrity and honesty?
Probably not. I mean, the AP poll's been around since 1936, I believe. They've been doing things this way for a long time. I don't expect things to change, but it'd be interesting to start going that route. I mean, I think it would make more sense. I think we would all agree that it would make more sense, but I don't know. The AP poll is very old and it is still conducted in a very old manner.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are probably voters who are like, oh man, I just really need to redo some of this, but they're not going to make like giant jumps because then everybody will like trash them online for like overreacting and making huge moves, moving up 20 or dropping a team from 2 to dropping them out, like Florida State after the second game, or or even after the Georgia Tech game. Probably should have been dropped out of the polls, but it probably took 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get Florida State out, but because nobody wants to overreact. Adam Vinchik says, any update on George? I'm assuming he means Brandon George, right? Because Brandon George came out of the game against Syracuse, but he spoke to the media yesterday. If that's happening, he's fine. There's no issues there. Is there any other George he could be referring to?
I would assume George Aston's fine. Like he's probably like bench pressing the world or something. So he's
good. Yeah. Nothing can really hurt him. Mark Shilju says, let's assume Pitt wins a minimum of 9 games this year. That would make Narduzzi with 9+ wins in 3 out of 4 years. Where does it rank him with modern Pitt coaches, starting with Johnny Majors Part 1? Fine. I have the media guide, Jim.
Okay.
Johnny Majors Part 1. First year went 8-4. No, not first year. First year went 6-5-1, then 7-4, 8-4, 12-0 in 76, and then he was gone. Jackie Sherrill, 9 wins, 8 wins, 11-11-11. So Sherrill won 9+ in 4 out of 5 years. 4 out of all 5 years that he coached here. And that's about it, because Foge Fazio won 9 games once. Was there? No, that was an 8-3-1 Mike Godfrey because he had a tie against West Virginia. Only won 8 games. Dave Wanstead won, 9 and then 10 in 2008 and 2009, and that's it. Wait, did Wald have a 9-win year? He did. Wald Harris won 9 wins in 2002. Yeah. So, winning 3 out of 4 or winning 9+ in 3 out of 4 seasons. The only other guy who's done it, basically since like Jock Sutherland is Jackie Sherrill, who's had 3 9-win seasons as Pitt's head coach. Jackie Sherrill's the only other one who's even done it since Jock Sutherland. So yeah, it would put, since Jock Sutherland, if you talk about Pitt coaches who have won 9+ in 2 years, just in 2 years, out of their entire coaching tenure, there's Sherrill, there's Dave Wanstead, and there's Pat Narduzzi. So these things that have occurred are somewhat rarefied air. And where they're at already, I would say they're well on their way to 9 wins and likely to achieve that. And that's going to put him in pretty select company. You don't always see guys, Jim, in the final, I shouldn't say final, but in, this is 10 years. And his greatest successes have come in 21, 22, 23, 24, like the last 4 of his 10 years. Even though he won the Coastal Division in year 4, his greatest successes have come in the second half of what his tenure has been so far. I don't think you always see guys go that direction. You might take a couple years to get going, but most of your success is going to be earlier than where it's been for Narduzzi, right?
Yeah, he had a little bit of surge at the beginning. I think, they started 5-1 his first year. Like, you kind of have that natural energy from a new coaching staff. We saw a little bit of it with Fran Brown this year. Like, you kind of get a little juice around the program. But, going back to, like, historical things, if Pitt were to finish the year ranked, Narduzzi would be the 4th coach in Pitt history to have 3 teams finish the year ranked. So that'd be Mickelson. Is it Mickelson? Is that how you say it?
There's an O in there.
Mickelson, Sutherland, Sherrill, Narduzzi would be the only 4 coaches to have 3 ranked team, like 3 AP final ranked teams. So that's a lot to play for.
And Narduzzi, 21, 22, and then it would be 24, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. It's pretty remarkable. Dan K. I don't know about this. What former Pitt player in any sport would be the best U.S. president? I'm trying to think of who was like the smartest guy I remember from covering Pitt. I don't know. I don't really have to think about it.
Yeah.
Doran. Vote for Doran. I think everybody would vote for Doran.
Yeah, he'd be a good one.
Larry Fitzgerald or something. I don't know. I'll just say Doran and move on. If you think of a good option, a good answer, let me know. Will Z says this 7.5 line reeks of assumption that Pitt is only going to have 200 yards of offense. Cade Bell and Eli need to have a redemption game. Yeah. This is it's a big opportunity for the defense to make plays against a pretty good offense, but this is good. Like, Eli Holstein needs to win this game, and Cade Bell needs to win this game. Like, they need to make it happen. I think the defense is going to keep doing what they've been doing for the past few games. Bell and Holstein have to. I was going to try and hit the mute button before I sneezed, but then the sneeze came too fast. They have to win this game, right? It's going to be those two.
Yeah, I agree. It's not going to be like Cal 17-15, or you're not going to have 3 defensive touchdowns again like Syracuse. Like, defense is going to make their plays. They're going to have sacks. They're probably going to generate a turnover or 2. Like, they're going to do what they do, but it's hard to ask them to win a game on the road. It's tough to, like, rely on defense on the road because, I don't know, it just doesn't always work out that way. The defense kind of feeds off the crowd energy at home. So, yeah, the offense is that you're going to need something like what he did against North Carolina, where he was just, he threw an interception, but he bounced back and just kept it rolling. Like, Cincinnati, like, he turned it on when he had to. Like, he has good track record, like, 2 starts on the road, 2 wins, 6 touchdown passes. Yeah, that's not bad. So, just kind of play loose and free. And yeah, the offense is probably going to need to do more of the heavy lifting than the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. Zach Fluharty says Pitt will win by double digits. Maybe. I don't know. I said that the only thing that would surprise me in Thursday night's game would be a blowout, one way or the other, and they found a way to surprise me. I did not predict 3 pick sixes. So, they can surprise me. And so I should know that any surprise is possible. Anything is possible. K Hack says all that matters is Holstein playing. He always was, man. He always was. Fluority says SMU blows. I don't think that's true. Do you think that's true, Jim? Do you think SMU blows?
I don't think they blow. I like I said earlier, like I don't think like they're the greatest team that they should be a 7.5 point favorite, but like they don't blow me away, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. RJC man, what's that?
But they don't blow. They don't blow me away, but they
right. Yeah, gotcha. RJC man says Texas Tech complained that TCU and Baylor tapped into their headset communications. Does the ACC have any policies or ways to prevent such actions? Presumably, I don't know off the top of my head. I didn't see it. Did you see this story with Texas Tech? And I haven't seen that either. Feels like some high school type of stuff, or Patriots. Actually, it feels like some New England Patriots type of stuff, which I think they actually were accused of doing. Of tapping into the radio connections, but I haven't heard anything about that. I'm sure there's something in place to try and prevent it, but I don't know what it is. ZC717 says that was Kenny Pickett's biggest problem. He used to take way too many shots down the field and not just take what the defense gave him. That will come with experience for him. I think he's due big time. Yeah, I don't tend to think that you just boom, I feel like everything happens gradually and it moves in ebbs and flows and fits and starts and there's steps forward and steps back. Due big time. I think he's due to take some steps forward, and it might be a giant. I don't know if it'll be a giant step forward, but I think he's due. Eli Holstein is due to take some steps forward, and what that looks like. I don't know. Does it look like another 300-yard, 3-touchdown game? Maybe. But I think he, number one, don't throw interceptions, and 2, just you got to move the ball downfield. Cade Bell said they wanted to lead the country in first downs, right? And so do that. You need to pick up the first downs. You need to just keep drives going, and you can do that with deeper passes. You can do that with mid-range passes. You can do it with short passes because you have guys like Desmond Reed who can make plays. So there's a lot. I think there's a lot he can do better, and I assume they've spent the last 10 days trying to figure that out, right?
I would think so. Like we talked about earlier, he's talented. He's had a bunch of really good games. It wouldn't shock me if he has another good one Saturday.
Yeah. Mark Shillaju says, if Eli's struggling, do you think Pat Narduzzi gives him the hook? Great start aside. The one thing Nate Yarnell does as well is read coverages. I don't know. I don't know where the hook comes in. Does Pat Narduzzi pull Eli Holstein if Eli Holstein has a Kyle McCord game? In your opinion?
I would hope so. If this dude is throwing 5 interceptions on the road, then that means Pitt's going to lose by a lot. So I never understood why Fran Brown left him in there. It's like leaving the pitcher whenever he gave up 10 runs in the first inning. It's like, got to yank him eventually. This is just isn't good.
Yep. I agree. Donovan Reed says SMU has not played a really good running team. I hadn't really thought about that. I'm trying to think. I mean, they played Louisville, right? They have that good freshman running back.
Yeah.
Let's see. Louisville's rushing offense is ranked 68. They played Nevada. Nevada's rushing offense is ranked 36, but it's Nevada. I think I'm not even going to look at Houston Christian. BYU's rushing offense 58. TCU's rushing offense is ranked 123. I just clicked on Florida State, but why would I do that?
Yeah.
130. They're averaging 80 yards per game on the ground. Louisville and then Stanford. Stanford's 96th in the country in rushing offense, and Duke is 117. So Donovan Reed might be right about that. By the rankings at least, they've not faced a great rushing offense. Now, for context on all those things, Pitt's rushing offense is ranked number 64 in the nation. But again, that's after last week's game when they had very few opportunities. Look, I'm not going to count out. I'm not going to say that SMU will shut down Pitt's running game. The thing about Pitt's running game, and it's funny because like when you look at Desmond Reed's numbers against Cal, right? I think he had, his numbers off the top of your head.
120 yards.
120 yards. Okay, for some reason I thought it was the number. How many carries did he have? Do you know? You have that number?
Nah, I already clicked off the page. I was looking up something else.
Wait, I have it right here. I have something I want to say about 16. That's what it was. 16 carries for 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. Great stat line, but of course there'll be somebody who say, yeah, well, 72 of those 160 or 120 yards came on one play. And that's true. And those all count. And those are huge plays. And if you're facing a stout run defense like SMU, those are the kind of plays you need. When you're facing a good run defense like SMU or any good run defense, you need to have the back who, yeah, they might get shut down for a decent part of the game. The run defense might do well, but on that one time where they misfit or they read it wrong or they take the wrong alignment, you've got the guy who can turn it into a 72-yard touchdown run. And that's what Desmond Reed could do. I wouldn't be surprised if Pitt ends up with good rushing numbers as a whole in this game, but they have a lot of 2-1-0 gains on the ground because SMU will be pretty stout. But they've got a guy in Desmond Reed, best playmaker on the team, one of the best playmakers in the ACC. They've got a guy who can turn that one mistake into a touchdown. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does that. I wouldn't be surprised if they make life very difficult on Pitt's running game, but then Reed breaks that play. I'm sure he's anxious. He only had 11 touches in that game. He didn't have a target,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure SMU's defense is good, but I can't imagine it's like leaps and bounds better than Cal. Like Cal was really good defensively, like just the whole way around. So, I mean, you saw that kind of challenge. So you kind of know what you're going up against, and you kind of have to adjust. That's kind of like what we've been saying. Just play better on offense. It's
right.
Simple enough, right?
Well, and I guess if you do the math, right? So he had the 72-yard run, 120 yards. What's that? 48 yards on his other 15 carries. So that's about 3 yards per carry. I tend to think 4 yards per carry is that cutoff line of like a good rushing average. So he only averaged about 3 yards per carry on the others, but that 72 makes his whole average looks better, but that also changes the game, that big play. And so you have a guy who can do that. I don't think Rodney Hammond can make that run. You know what I mean? Daniel Carter, despite his exploits against Youngstown State, I don't. So you have that guy who's sort of unique. That's what Izzy Abanikanda had. He could make that run, even if the first 9 runs get stopped for 1 yard gain. Number 10 might be the one that goes all the way. Adam Vinchik wants to know if we have a score prediction and a bold prediction. I don't know. Do you have one, Jim? Do you have a score prediction and a bold prediction?
I don't. I didn't do a behind enemy lines this week because it doesn't really seem like the SMU website's all that active. That's usually where I get my I have my final score ready. So now I'm bold prediction. Eli Holstein throws for 300 yards. He bounces back.
Okay,
that is my bold prediction. He's back.
I thought you were going to say like four total touchdowns for Holstein, which I think could be in play as well, even if it's like 2 passing and 2 rushing from the one or something like that.
Fine. Yeah. As far as a score, I'll say Pitt 35, SMU 27.
Yeah, that's a good call. 35-27. I like that. Might even go. Yeah, I kind of think Pitt's going to win too. I might go 31-21. And you know what? It worked out for me last week. So I think my bold prediction is going to be another Rasheem Biles pick 6 because I just think it's I had been predicting it for their first 7 games, either silently or aloud. I predicted it for 7 games. So, it finally paid off. So I'm going to ride that one for the next week too. ZC717 says if SMU turns the ball over 6 times this week, they're definitely not winning. I agree about that.
Yeah.
If Pitt can get 6 turnovers, they're not going to lose the game.
I don't know how Duke did.
Yeah, and they had, so this is interesting about Duke too. Their receiver Pankel, it was Eli Pankel, I think is his name. He had like 11 for like 138 yards and a touchdown. But the thing is, he's big. He's like a 6'3" receiver. And this is the one thing that concerns me about Pitt's offense is like, so Pankel was able to go off, but he was able to use his size on a lot of plays. Pitt doesn't really have that kind of size. You know what I mean? Kenny Johnson's probably their biggest receiver, right? Among the wideouts, like not counting tight ends.
Not counting Dejon Reynolds. Big body receiver.
Yeah. All right. You're going to change your bold prediction to a Dejon Reynolds breakout game? Is that what you're getting at, Jim?
How many catches does he have this year? 3? I think
so.
I think Syracuse, he got the ball once or twice.
I think I can remember them all. Yeah. Very distinct memories of all of Dejon Reynolds' catches.
That one catch was pretty good. They should try that again.
Yeah. 3 for 57 and a touchdown. So, I mean, he's got the highest yards per catch average on the team. He's averaging 19 yards per reception. Zach Fluharty says Kevin Jennings not being able to move as well is big. I think that's probably something worth considering. I mean, his leg did bend a weird way on a late hit, a hit late in the game in that Duke game. And, Rhett Lashley talking about he's questionable. I mean, we'll see. I'm sure he's going to play, but he might not be 100%. And he's a guy who has a lot of rushing success. I mean, he's, a big part of those RPOs. I mean, he keeps the ball, or he also doesn't just run, but he also rolls out and makes plays on the run, passing plays on the run. That could be a big factor. I think if you can slow him down a little bit, because it was weird, like with the interceptions that he threw, he had one that was a terrible decision where he was scrambling, he was under pressure, he was running toward the right sideline and just throws back across his body to the middle field. It was a terrible idea. You shouldn't throw that ball. But the other 2 picks weren't necessarily bad throws by him, but they were sort of like Pitt's interceptions against Syracuse, where it just seemed like the Duke defenders knew where to be. They knew what the route was. I mean, even the broadcasters were like, well, the Duke defender ran that route better than the SMU receiver. I mean, they just knew what to do, which is what I think Pitt was able to do against Kyle McCord. And so if they can get a read on Jennings the way they got a read on McCord, I think the opportunities will be there. Over under 0.5 interceptions for Pitt in this game.
I think they'll get their hands on one.
Yeah. Kind of do too. RJC Man says SMU has not played a team more physical than Pitt. This is going to be a wake-up call to the AP, in my opinion. It's an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to give a wake-up call and make a statement to anyone who might be paying attention, whether it's the Associated Press or the coaches or the rest of the conference or the nation. It does, like, this is an opportunity to make a statement. Like, I was thinking about these like statement games where they had an opportunity to make a statement outside of the ACC Championship game. I think the Clemson game in 2021 was an opportunity to make a statement, which they did. I think the Virginia game in 2018, that Friday night game where I think a lot of people around here, at least Pitt fans, were starting to believe in the team, was an opportunity to make a statement. And the other one that I found under Narduzzi was his first year they played UNC. They were 6-1. They'd moved into the polls 2 weeks earlier. They were up to number 23. It was a Thursday night game. It was in prime time, and it was a chance. I mean, they were 6-1. It was a chance to really make a statement about who they were, and they lost, but that was like a statement opportunity game. This one on Saturday, I think, is the biggest opportunity for a statement game that Pitt has had under Pat Narduzzi outside of the ACC Championship game.
Yeah, this is the biggest regular season game I can remember, and I like started looking up like Pitt ranked games, and like the last 2 were like the Peach Bowl and the ACC Championship. Like there hasn't been many opportunities where Pitt is playing as a ranked team against another ranked team. But I feel like I forget where I landed on this. I somehow it got the whole way back to like 2003 Pitt Virginia Tech. So
yeah.
I think there was one in the COVID year, and I didn't count that just because everything was stupid that year.
A ranked versus ranked.
Yes.
Yeah, the Tennessee game in 22 was
yeah.
I did too. I thought it went back to the Peach Bowl or the ACC Championship game, but Pitt was 17 and Tennessee was 24 in that game. So that was the most recent time it's happened. But it's a huge opportunity. I don't think there's any question about it. bust through a couple here real quick. Mark Shillaju says Miami went after Wendell Davis in the 2020 game, which is why he was benched. I think he was benched because he was arguing with the coaches after he made a mistake. But that wasn't why they lost. Like I say, they lost because they made a bunch of missed tackles. Will Z says, I don't know if Pitt will win, but I will wager Alberto finally gets his touchdown. I mean, he's got to catch a touchdown at some point, right, Jim?
Yeah.
I mean, like, Gavin Bartholomew has to catch a pass in the end zone, doesn't he?
One would think. He had a couple last year, even with that team. So I think he that could be a good bold prediction.
Gavin Bartholomew.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Talk is Pitt says the internet must be terrible tonight for both Chris and Jim. Am I freezing for you, Jim? Like my video? Like
sometimes it happened a few times.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's been happening with you a lot. I can hear you. The audio never cuts out, but the video, I don't know if it's because I'm streaming the World Series game over here. I don't know if you're doing the same thing, and maybe that's
I do have it on. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you streaming it or are you watching it on cable?
It's on in the other room. It's on YouTube TV, so it is a stream. So
yeah, I wonder if we're
who's winning?
The Yankees. It's 5-0 in the top of the fifth. Garrett Cole mowing them down.
Good player.
Just delaying the inevitable. Good player, isn't he? I was going into a long thing with my kids the other day about how Paul Skeens is going to eventually be a Yankee, and that's why we all hate everything about the Pirates, and they don't want to win. But anyway, that's not a rant for this. We'll save that for the Sports Talk Radio, and we'll have lots of Pitt sports talk, of course, throughout the week and the weekend here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Don't forget the live show after the game on Saturday night. We'll be live pretty much as soon as that game ends right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Don't know an exact time yet, but if you want to make sure you don't miss it, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Turn on your notifications. And you can get an alert sent to your phone as soon as we go live so you won't miss it. Of course, we'll have lots of coverage at Panther-Lair.com all throughout the week and the weekend. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Jim, thanks for your time tonight. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody who tuned in on the live stream with your comments and your questions and your conversation. It's been a lot of fun to have these discussions. All right. Everybody have a good week. Good rest of the week. Only a couple of days left. We got a good morning Pitt for you tomorrow, the mailbag on Friday, and then the game on Saturday. Like and subscribe, and we will catch up with you tomorrow for the morning Pit and the live stream after the game Saturday night right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.